a deadly curse, a wandering soul, and an unexpected side effect of surgery. Are these the subjects of true stories, or creations from our collection of deranged minds? Join us as we divide the lines between fact and fiction.
The line that divides the factual from the unreal has long since blurred. The tales we once thought fantastical, now implanted as true. To decipher verity from the imagined, you must break from the ordinary and consider a universe where the outlandish prevails. Can you expand your mind to see beyond our perceived reality? Can you decide what's fact or fiction?
Ella Maxfield was thoroughly excited for her mother-daughter cruise aboard the SS Serenity, but after a run-in with her cantankerous landlord, their plans were thrown for an unusual loop.
Ella had grown tired of her landlord's attitude toward her complaints. For 3 weeks, she'd been listening to her faucet drip, and after the miserable day she suffered through, it wasn't a noise she wanted to listen to. Admittedly, she could have started the call off a little more amicable, but she wanted it fixed, especially before she and her son Jacob embarked on a company outing that had been planned for the following day. "It takes 3 weeks to fix a leaking pipe?" she asked the moment her landlord picked up the phone. The phone call was heated enough, but then he decided to come to her apartment to confront her face to face. She used to fear eviction, but found he was all talk and no action. At least, until he came pounding on her door, screaming through the thin material for her to pack her things. When she swung the door open and fired back, he only grew louder. Eventually, she pointed out that he couldn't throw her out solely based on her complaints, and that only made matters worse. "You and your brat will be on the street when I'm through with you," he barked, forcefully pushing past her to a portrait of the Virgin Mary Ella had purchased at a garage sale. Before she could protest, he spit on the painting and cursed at it, storming his way back out. Ella contemplated calling the cops, but she felt she could handle the situation on her own. The rest of the evening was quiet and consisted of her and Jacob preparing for their day on the open water. After her son fell asleep, however, she started to feel an uneasiness that gradually grew on her. For some reason, she felt drawn to the Virgin Mary portrait, and as she grew closer to it, her body reacted. Ella started to get angry, and a queasiness coursed through her body. She wrote it off as lingering adrenaline from her fight earlier in the day and stresses at work. But when she woke up the following morning and felt nervousness racking her body, she couldn't help but feel like her landlord had done something. Her instincts brought her to cancel the outing, and she and Jacob remained at home that day. She never could describe the feeling when she later found out that the boat they were supposed to set sail on, the SS Serenity, sank, killing all 800 people that were on board.
That was too close for comfort. But the question is, did it really happen? Could the landlord's actions toward the Virgin Mary painting bring about such a feeling of unease as to cause the family to miss out on the work outing? It sounds coincidental, but does that make it impossible? We'll have answers for you at the reveal, but we want to know what you think. So vote now using the on-screen poll and in the comments section. As we move on, we have Cesar Rivas, a man whose life was completely changed one day through an experience that many would consider impossible.
Cesar was your average 12-year-old, albeit a little on the quieter side. It was his more timid personality that made him a target of bullies in his neighborhood, which led to the unfortunate accident that nearly cost him his life. While walking home one day, Cesar came under attack by local punks that were throwing rocks at him. When he tried to find out where the rocks were coming from, one struck him in the eye. Though the accident was life-threatening, Caesar survived, but he emerged not as the same person he had been. While Caesar's physical body was undergoing the trauma of the injury to his left eye, which he did lose, his soul was going through its own ordeal. Caesar, now well into his years, considered himself a walk-in, an entity that took over the younger boy's body after the soul left it during the trauma. After his recovery, everyone noticed a change in Caesar's demeanor and mannerisms. No longer was he the shy boy. He started to excel at school and took part in social and community events that his former self would have strayed away from. According to Caesar, he doesn't remember when he transitioned into the body he inhabits now, but he does hold on to the vivid memory of a prior life, one that occurred off of Earth. When pressed on where he came from, he mentions the planet Kitsa, a celestial body that was destroyed before people on Earth could discover it. As a walk-in, Caesar feels that once he's completed his time on this plane of existence, he'll embark on another mission. For now, he exists as the grown-up version of the timid young boy whose soul left his body during a traumatic time in his life.
Was Caesar's body the vessel for a new entity? A walk-in, as they're called? Could his accident just have simply traumatized him into developing a new personality? Or is this just another case of a fantastical story posed as truth? Leave your vote now and prepare for our final story, one that may leave some of you rethinking a simple elective procedure. Tony Marie wanted to improve her quality of life, but she wasn't quite ready for the side effects that her optometrist failed to mention.
When Tony Marie decided to go through with Lasik surgery, she knew there would be side effects: hazy vision, dry eyes, the occasional scratchiness. Willing to go through it all to never have to wear glasses again. Though the surgery went well, it was a bit more traumatic than expected. The notion that someone had complete access to her eye was more jarring than expected. She flinched a few times and contemplated calling it off entirely, but was eventually able to compose herself enough to make it through. She didn't speak for the first hour after, instead focusing hard on fighting back the tears that wanted to escape. The surgeon praised her on getting through it and assured her that, despite the side effects, she was already at 20/20 vision. What Tony never expected in the days that followed was for an entirely new worldview to be opened up to her. She saw the first one the day after the surgery, but wrote it off as a trick of her new eyesight. It appeared to be standing at the edge of her bed, hazy like everything else in her line of sight. When she blinked, it vanished, as did much of what she called Instagram filter effect. On and off throughout the first few days, her eyes played tricks on her. She felt like she was in a perpetual glamour shot, marred occasionally by figures that hovered at the edge of her peripheral. By the 8th day of recovery, everything started to return to normal. Everything but her visitors. With the dry eye subsiding and the haze diminished greatly, Tony was ready to start enjoying life without glasses and contacts. But the universe seemed to have other plans for her. Walking through the local library, she noticed a man standing aimlessly at one end of an aisle, staring at the row of books in front of him. He appeared pale and just barely translucent, but Tony figured she still had some healing and adjusting to do. When she moved to the next aisle, he was there again. This time, his gaze locked onto her. He didn't move or speak. He just stood there, seemingly frozen in time. With chills running down her spine, Tony turned from the aisle and followed a group of people leaving the building, checking over her shoulder frequently to ensure her admirer remained inside. That evening, she was forced to face the reality that those figures that she thought were caused by dry eyes and blurred vision were really there. Especially the one that stood over her bed, which was likely the same one she woke up to only an hour after falling asleep. Like the man in the library, it didn't move or speak, but she could feel a pair of eyes on her. She wanted to scream, but the noise lodged in her throat. After what felt like minutes, the figure faded away, leaving her alone in her pitch-black room. Tony's story was passed down through her friends and family, the only people she ever trusted. Sadly, after a month of dealing with what she claimed to be an unwanted side effect of her surgery and the trauma she suffered through, she took her own life. All that she saw is mostly still a mystery as she stopped telling people about her experiences. But those closest to her recall hearing dozens of stories about seeing people that weren't really there. Spectral shadows that would simply stare at Tony as if she were intruding on a world where she didn't belong.
There are many side effects to Lasik surgery, but could altered perception be one of them? It's true that the trauma she claims to have endured could have caused mental anguish. But isn't Lasik meant to be a simple surgery? Still, anyone with a hesitancy of having things near their eyes may understand where she's coming from. It's an intriguing tale, one that we have the answer for in just a moment. So vote now while we get to the moment we've all been waiting for.
Are you ready to find out if you can decipher between fact or fiction? Let's look back at tonight's 3 stories and find out which were born from reality and which were fabrications of the imagination.
First, we'll revisit Ella Maxfield and her intolerant landlord. Do you think she was saved by divine intervention of the Virgin Mary? We may never know what really stepped in and kept her from setting sail the next morning, but this is based on true events. The setting was July 1915, and it was a man named Henry that had a falling out with his landlord. The ship in question was the SS Eastland, which lost 844 passengers and became the largest loss of life to date in the Great Lakes shipwreck history. Now, how about that Caesar Rivas? Did we throw that story together to keep you guessing? If you think so, I'm sorry to say, we didn't. The tale comes from a man named Hector Casanovas. At 12 years old, Hector was struck in the eye with a rock and wasn't expected to live. During the course of his initial surgeries, Hector claims the 12-year-old boy's soul left his body, making room for the walk-in entity that now inhabits it. Finally, we have the tragic story of a woman that just wanted to improve her way of life, only to be left in a nightmare with only one escape. Did Tony's Lasik surgery leave her seeing things that weren't really there? For all of you looking to get Lasik, worry not. This is one of our own creations.
How well did you do in tonight's video? Did you look past the deception of our world and define the off-blurred line that struggles to separate lies from the truth? Let us know in the comment section below. And should you find the urge to test your perceptions again, be sure to subscribe and join us next time when we ask you to decide what's fact or fiction.